My name's Ryan Mooney Bullock. I'm the Executive Director of Green Umbrella. And we are so excited to have all of the candidates here tonight, as well as all of you to hear from them. Green Umbrella works across a 10-county region. So the city of Cincinnati is just one part of the community we serve. But we have seen firsthand what a difference it makes to have local electeds really leading the charge on climate issues. And that's why we decided that there was a huge opportunity to help cultivate more candidates and therefore more elected officials who really know their stuff and are ready to talk issues, figure out solutions when it comes to climate, environment, sustainability, however you want to talk about these issues that we care so much about. And so we help develop programming that helps educate candidates and then helps them share what they think with the voters, with all of you. And so tonight, we're hearing the second part of that. These candidates are going to share their platforms and answer questions that we gathered from the community. But earlier this summer, we hosted an education event for candidates. And Savannah, the slide is not advancing, so I don't know if you have any suggestions. There we go. Never mind. Mouse click. Where we brought candidates together, shared some information about national and state policy, about the impacts of climate change on our region, and about things like the Green Cincinnati plan and other tools that are already available and ready to roll here locally, so that as soon as candidates come into office, they are ready to take steps and speak about these issues. 13 council and school board candidates and 5 staff members joined us for that July training, and all candidates had the chance to connect with partners at the Ohio Environmental Council Action Fund to help develop their platforms. So we're excited to hear what they came up with tonight. There we go. We also had a huge number of partners that have come together to co-host this event, and I just want to highlight all of them and share some of the folks who are here tonight. So with the American Institute of Architects, Cincinnati, we have Chris Patek. With the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library, we have David Siders. With Groundwork, Ohio River Valley, we have Margot Roberts, and I see many other Groundwork shirts here, so I know there's other folks in the house. From HomeBase, we have Mohit Raut. Thank you. From Housing Opportunity, we have Housing Opportunities Made Equal, Mitch Deck. We also have partners from Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. From Mill Creek Alliance, we have Dave Schmidt here. Ohio River Way was another partner, as was Parents for Public Schools and Seven Hills Neighborhood Houses. From Tri-State Trails, we have Wade Johnston. From Working in Neighborhoods, we have Rigel Behrens. From the World Affairs Council of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, we have Melissa McDonald. And from Your Store of the Queen City, we have Reba Hennessy. So thanks everyone for being here and helping to spread the word. We'd also love to invite you back right here in 2 weeks. Green Umbrella is hosting a very different event. It's our annual meeting, which is really more like a party. And we're going to be making some exciting announcements about our future growth and impact. And we'd love for you to be here to learn more. So I'd love to introduce now our Mistress of Ceremonies for tonight, Savannah Sullivan, who is Green Umbrella's Senior Director of Programs and Climate Strategy.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. And don't worry, we're getting the lights out of your eyes, folks. I'm going to do that real fast for us. Great. So I am so pleased to be here tonight and to be able to host this fun event. This is something that we did in 2021 for the first time, and that was a very different election year. We had about 80 candidates for city council run through that year, and we were able to train over 40 of them through our program, and 18 council candidates ended up attending our forum that year, sharing platforms. And I know this election year is really different, and we're just so glad that we've got another excellent turnout. And so who we have here today, I'm going to share the names of the candidates if you'll wave as I say your name, though I'm sure a lot of folks recognize y'all already. We've got Anna Albee, Jeff Kramerding, Reggie Harris, Mark Jeffries, Scotty Johnson will be here shortly, as will Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Kearney. We've got Liz Keating, Mika Owens, and Seth Walsh. Those are your City Council candidates 2023. Woo! And something new this year, we also have school board candidates, and we are so thrilled to also have Eve Bolton and Kendra Mapp. So the plan for this evening is we are going to first hear candidates share their climate platforms. They'll have 2 minutes each to share their platforms. We're just going to go down the line. You'll get to hear their thoughts on what they want climate action to look like in Cincinnati and what they envision being able to move into being through their position. I do want to gesture towards Charlie Gonzalez. If you can raise your hand, Charlie. He will be keeping time for you all. You will hear a ding at 2 minutes. So please just be conscientious. He'll give you a flag when you have 30 seconds left. After this, candidates will have the opportunity to answer 2 questions. These questions come from not only our lovely partners here, some of them will be asking the questions themselves. We've also collected questions from residents the last 6 weeks. So some of the questions have come directly from voters as well. And so I'm now going to change the cameras so that we can see the candidates. And we are going to first start with Liz Keating to share her platform. And I hope the microphone works for you.
Hello? Yes, it
Perfect.
does. Well, hello, I'm Liz Keating. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I am a mother. I've got a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. So if you hear mama screaming in the back or the chairs tipping over, that is my children back there. But I am a mom, and this is personal to me because my goal is to make sure that every child in the city has a roof over their head, food on their table, a safe neighborhood to live in, and future equal opportunities for future success. And I want to make sure that my kids and all of their peers can grow up in a city that is clean, that is sustainable, and that it sets them up for best for their future. And some of the things that I've been focused on during my time on council and going forward is number one, housing, and making sure that we can change our zoning laws to be able to get more density and incentivize more housing built along public transit lines in our business districts and our major arterial routes. And the other piece that I've been working on is innovation within government around sustainability. So 2 years ago, we launched the city's first ever hackathon, partnering with our startup ecosystem and our corporate community to hack new innovations around litter, and this past year around recycling and how to be more effective at recycling, particularly in multifamily units. Continuing to drive that innovation, continuing to build more housing and incentivize housing along public transit lines are where I'm focused on. And I have loved my time working with all of my colleagues up here, advancing those together in a bipartisan way.
Great. Yeah, you can just keep going. Sorry.
Okay, that was clean and concise. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Albee. I am a fresh face on the council lineup here. I'm a non-incumbent, so a little special there. So thank you all for letting me join tonight and share with you. So I first just want to share a quick background about myself. I come from the gun violence prevention background. I've been leading our Moms Demand Action group here locally, which is a grassroots organization focused on gun safety. And I've had the honor of working beside City Council and our mayor on those, including standing with council as we introduce the 2 gun safety ordinances that are in effect today in Cincinnati. The first one requiring secure firearm storage, and the other one preventing those convicted of domestic violence from owning or using a firearm. Both those have been upheld in the courts as well. So very exciting. Now, what does that have to do with the environment? Well, there is a strong correlation between gun violence, climate justice, and how our environments intersect. If we think about making sure that everyone has access to a living wage, have a roof over their head, fresh food on the table, access to healthcare, that we're investing into our youth programs, each one of those have climate impacts. Do we have dense neighborhoods, efficient transportation between those? Do we make sure that people, especially kids, have access to fresh food? We know that is a big thing that comes into effect when we think about how kids are registering education and able to live and thrive. So encouraging garden local gardens and neighborhood clubs like that is a really big part of it. And then if we think about what our youth programs are, having them engage in the environment, maybe it's getting out into trail. There's a great program that I'm really supportive of with the city, the Safe and Clean Fund, and that specifically focuses on programs within the neighborhood to make the spaces greener and safer. When it comes to gun violence prevention, there's a whole philosophy that's called crime prevention through environmental design. So how do we turn our spaces into gardens and places where people want to be and where they're safe? So I'm excited to be here tonight and share more about our climate priorities. Thank you.
Great. Next up is Jeff Kramerding.
Thank you. Yes, I am Jeff Kramerding. Moving forward, as far as my green agenda, it's one, we need to attack heat islands in our poorest neighborhoods. Working with Councilmember Owens, I did a motion. We've got our great urban forestry assessment in the city of Cincinnati, which lets us plant trees. Most of our city property, our parks property is planted out, but we wanted to partner with CPS, with public schools, with CMHA, and with CRC to use that to be able to plant trees on those green spaces, those public spaces. Unfortunately, our law department said we can't do that, but just because one avenue is denied, we are going to keep looking for avenues to give our parks department has the resources, the foresters to plant trees and the knowledge. We just need to give them the resources to be able to do the work in other public properties, especially in areas where there's heat islands. Two, our parks should be leading when it comes to climate issues, and unfortunately they're not. Our public parks are dying because of the invasive species and honeysuckle have now been there for 30 years and we don't have mature trees. So our public parks are in a terrible spot. We need to work with Groundwork to Ohio and other people to get green jobs to clear out the invasive species to save our forests, and we do need to do it now. And third, as Councilmember Keating said, housing is a crisis. The greenest building is a building that already sits there. When we're working to address the housing crisis, we need to do adaptive reuse as often as possible. Currently, a number of our incentives incentivize you to tear down a building. For example, if you tear down a building and replace it with a LEED building, which is great, you get an incentive. But obviously, adaptive reuse and using an existing building is the best solution. And we as a city need to prioritize that. I and many of others just traversed past the former Bethesda Oak Hospital, which is a beautiful building, which could have been used for lots of things. It's now demolished, which is unfortunate. So we need to incentivize adaptive reuse as a city.
Next up, Reggie Harris.
Hi, good evening. My name is Reggie Harris, Cincinnati City Council member, Chair of Budget and Finance. Like many of my colleagues, I sort of lean into my particular expertise, and so I come with a background in affordable housing development. And as Councilmember Keating said, a few years ago, she really led on the density issue that opened up a conversation to thinking about how we think about sustainability and economic development. In 2020, the county made a decision to increase our sales tax, and we are now investing $150 million into our public transportation system. And so Connected Communities is work that my office has been leading with the mayor and Councilmember Kramerding and a lot of my colleagues with us to say, let's capitalize on our investments in public transportation and build housing there. Right now, there are only about 2 neighborhoods in which you can really live car-free with a certain level of ease. We have to change that. It has to be 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 neighborhoods. And so when you think about investments in crosstown routes, bus rapid transit, and then you add housing there that then brings density to then add amenities such as grocery stores and gyms and dry cleaners, we begin to start to address many aspects of sustainability. A dense building is a sustainable building. Second aspect of that is current conditions. And so Councilmember Kramerding is really leading on this idea of not tearing down, but adaptive reuse, but for those places that are currently being occupied, really cracking down on landlords who have tenants in substandard conditions. Children's Hospital is, #1 hospital in the world. They treat a number of children in disinvested neighborhoods for asthma and bronchitis and all types of respiratory diseases because of substandard living conditions, mold, rugs, air filtration. And so there is a way to make sure that we address that through sustainability practices.
Great. Next up is Mark Jeffries.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark Jeffries. Like my colleagues, first term on City Council. So Councilwoman Keating talked about her kids. My kids are a little older. Why do I mention them? They're 4. The first one just graduated from college, studying social environmental justice. The second one I just talked today is studying sustainability. So I jokingly say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree because these are areas that I'm personally very passionate about. So my overall platform in general is what I call safer, cleaner, greener, and there's environmental parts throughout all of that. As many of you know, a big passion area of mine is pedestrian safety, but it's not just pedestrians, it's also cyclists. We can't have a greener city if people aren't safe being able to walk or get out onto a trail. So a great example, my campaign manager and I were just out on Central Parkway, the new extension. Awesome. It has a little island there for people to be able to cross, to get to the bus stop safely, protected bike lane. So a great example of some of the work that we're doing. So safety affects everything. The other related one to safety is complete streets. So we passed a complete streets ordinance, which is really designing streets for people rather than cars to go through. And that means community. It means people are able to walk, people are able to go to their grocery store, people are able to traverse without using a car. The second clean part of it has multiple dimensions. I want to focus next council much more on the litter part, but we mentioned lead pipes, lead paint is a huge issue in an old city that we are, but also clean air. I think a big part about green in general is, yes, things like bus rapid transit, but expanding our bike network through partnerships like through Wade Johnson, but also equitably. So we added 500,000 through Councilman Harris's committee to the extension of the Wasson Way through Avondale for lighting, to make sure that as we extend the Wasson Way through neighborhoods, that we make sure we're responding to their needs. Thank you.
Great.
Next up, Jan Michelle Kearney.
All right, 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, let me just say I'm really proud of this council for really focusing on environmental disparities. So since I've been on council, I've been working on some things that are actually pretty ugly. You know, one is a gun range. So since 1947, our Cincinnati Police Department has had a gun range in Evendale, right next to Lincoln Heights and Woodlawn. When we first got there, it was a rural area, but Lincoln Heights, Woodlawn, these Evendale, they all grew up. And so now our gun range is right in the middle of all of that. And children are growing up, hearing guns all the time. It's really, it's got to change. And so for about 30 years, various members of council have tried to move it, and it just hasn't happened. And so when I got on council in 2020, Senator Sherrod Brown came to me and said, we've got to do something about this. The people of Lincoln Heights are really upset. And so since that time, I've been meeting with, back then it was Senator Rob Portman's office, Senator Sherrod Brown, with our county commissioners, and we finally found a place in Colerain Township where the sheriff's office already has a gun range. And Commissioner Denise Driehaus said, why don't you guys come here? Because we looked at different places. I was even in the middle of a turkey shoot one time. I mean, it was pretty cool. I'm like, what are all those guns going off? And they said, oh yeah, we're having a turkey shoot. So, I mean, just a lot, there was a lot that actually went into this, but we've spent a lot of years having conversations, trying to convince everybody, because we said, if you don't want us in Colerain Township, we're not coming. And so we've done a lot of community engagement, and everybody's on board. And then we had to have a design. So this is going to be a regional safety complex where county and city can work together and share resources away. And I should say there are 18 acres of green space around the site. Oh, are you the person that?
Yes.
Okay.
Charlie's a
All right. So just to say the good news is, as of last week, we actually had raised all the money for phase 1 of this project. So we are actually, this is a huge environmental win that we've kind of kept under the radar, because we don't want it to get super political where everybody's out yelling and screaming about it, which is what's happened in the past, which has kept this from actually moving forward. So that's really important. Another thing I've been pushing is to do something with this West Fork incinerator. Okay, what does that say? Okay. Who came up with this 2-minute thing? Okay. I don't, and I'm sure Mika's not going to be able to do this in 2 minutes because I mean, she led the green plan and all of that. So she's got a lot to talk about. Okay, well, I'll come back and talk about West Fork incinerator and all kinds of other, plastic bag ordinance, lots of things. Okay. So keep all that in mind. We'll talk about it later.
Great.
All right, I gladly accept your 2-minute challenge. So, Councilwoman Mika Owens, I'm excited to be on City Council in my first term, excited to run for my next term. So when I thought about running for, and one, I want to thank Green Umbrella and all the partners for putting this forum on. Climate is the issue that we have to elevate because it is the 21st century issue of the future of our time. And so when I thought about running for City Council, I thought about one, public safety and as it relates to gun violence, right? Healthy neighborhoods, effective human services delivery. What I've come to realize is that climate rests in all of the things that we are talking about. It is truly under the umbrella of the environment where true justice lies. And so when we're talking about gun violence as a public health crisis, what does that mean when you're living in a community of impervious surfaces and less green space than others, less tree canopy? What does that mean for mental health and your ability, urban heat island effects, and your ability to get a good night's rest? And so as I am seeing all of these threads work together, healthy neighborhoods, how are we using climate equity indicators to improve the health outcomes in our neighborhoods? Human services delivery, as we look at impacting our budget through things like keeping people in their homes, reducing eviction. These are all a part of how we build healthier neighborhoods, get to the denser, walkable communities that we need, but also making sure we're using our resources effectively that where climate has an impact, right? So when we talk about human services delivery, gun violence is a public health crisis, being able to effectively support 15 new organizations and programs that are using evidence-based practices to make sure we are reducing violence within young people's lives. And so again, I will just build on to all of the other pieces of transportation, walking in your neighborhood, biking, supporting the Crown Network, but really where all of this rests is in the Green Cincinnati plan. It is our strategic blueprint to get to the future. And so for me, my platform really rests in making sure we are the most innovative city in this nation, leading on all of the climate issues.
You almost got it. Oh, you're so close. I was rooting for you there. Vice Mayor, are you going to be pushing to increase our public comment time from 2 minutes now that we got some sympathy here? Good evening, everyone. My name is Seth Walsh. I was appointed to Cincinnati City Council in December of last year. And ironically, prior to that, I was running the College Hill Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation, doing the redevelopment along Hamilton Avenue. My last meeting that I actually missed because the news broke about my appointment was with Wade Johnson to talk about the College Hill Northside connector into the Crown. I'm still really sorry I missed that meeting there, Wade, but I'm really excited about it. Prior to working in College Hill and leading the redevelopment efforts there, I was actually in the neighborhood of Sedamsville, which is a blink and you miss it neighborhood. It's 3 streets on the lower west side of Cincinnati. And what I learned when I was in Sedamsville, starting off at the age of 22, 23, 24, was that the toxins that were coming from the industry in Price Hill were rolling over the hill into Sedamsville and lower Price Hill. And they were literally poisoning the grounds there in Sedamsville. All throughout our city of Cincinnati, we have environmental issues like this. In College Hill, any building that we bought, it was amazing. They were all dry cleaners. College Hill must have had the most dry cleaners per capita in the entire city, right? We're a very clean neighborhood. Got College Hill going on over here. Yesterday, we were in Sailor Park and they were talking about the CVG and the planes flying over. And to Councilmember Jeffrey's point about clean air, we have 52 neighborhoods in the city of Cincinnati, and I believe all of them can be thriving. And that's the effort that I want to put in. That's why I wanted to come to Cincinnati City Council, because we can do it. But we have to look at it through this environmental lens. We have to look at the environmental impact that's already been done. And then we got to look to the future. We talk about building parking lots, but they don't just have to be blacktop surfaces. They can be community gathering spaces with green space and trees, and taking away parking spaces in favor of these opportunities. And so the lens that I bring through this and that I want to bring to City Council is all the great things that are happening up here, but also how can we make this happen for all 52 neighborhoods so that we can help rectify what's happened in the past and look forward to the future so we're not having those issues going forward.
Next up are 2 school board candidates. First is Eve Bolton.
Hello, everyone. And I want to thank everybody for arranging the educational piece of this in preparation of tonight. That was very helpful to me and to the folks that are helping me on my campaign. I am seeking my 5th 4-year term for Cincinnati School Board. And my plan is to try to remain, if possible, to the best of my ability, I believe, the leading voice since 2008 for sustainability, green, environmental justice, and safe schools for our children. I feel very strongly that we are at a great place to begin even greater collaboration, which is part of my platform, with other governing bodies. And then also, if possible, not only to be collaborative, but to be comprehensive. This is about at least a dozen different things, whether it's curriculum, whether it's transportation, whether it's outdoor education, whether it's lead pipes going from the streets into our schools, whether it's having safe and green buildings. I think I'm the last of the folks on the board that had anything to do with the facilities master plan that you all voted almost 20 years ago for $1.2 billion, and 78% of that was locally funded. And it created our physical plant throughout. So we want to be collaborative, we want to be comprehensive, and we want climate safe for our children and all that that means. And what that for me is not only the health of the buildings, the health of the neighborhoods, but also that our kids become a green workforce, that our kids become socially conscious about their need to protect this earth and where we live. And there is a way of doing that, because you know what? We can learn so much and teach so much, but the kids have to be able to experience it. So I plan on being consistently persistent.
Yeah, and last but not least is Kendra Mapp.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you to all of the partners for hosting this event this evening. Again, my name is Kendra Mapp, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm a former educator of 11 years, supportive parent within the district, a community partner, and I always say I'm a proud graduate of Hughes High School. And I'm running for Cincinnati Public School Board of Education because I have the inherent belief that when we ensure that students and staff feel safe, secured, and valued, it yields expanded learning opportunities, increased academic outcomes, and positive investments throughout our community. And so my focus, my platform for running is mapping transformative education through body, mind, and connection. And it's a holistic approach to the academic experience. And so this platform came from a very hard place. It came from the tragic death of my brother, Stephen, in 2006. But that was an opportunity for me to identify what I could do in a constructive way to work on our community. And I recognized that was through the lens of education, and it was through the lens of wellness. And so as a potential board member, what I endeavor to do is ensure that our learning environments are safe, secure, equitable, affirming, and inclusive. Also make sure that I am fostering collaboratively with all constituents, fostering healthy mindsets and positive behaviors toward learning, work, and career development through a holistic curriculum. And lastly, strengthening alignment between school and community so that we can recognize and get to a point of those successful student outcomes, as well as promote healthy engagement. I strongly wholeheartedly believe, that our schools are the heartbeat of our community. When our schools are thriving, our communities are thriving. And I lean into my experience as a licensed professional counselor because, quite frankly, a lot of our students and families within the district are experiencing a lot of trauma and are expected to show up from a place of survival. And if I could just say real quickly, one of the things that I really try to make sure that I do is focus on helping our students, helping our families be present, understand how to connect with their bodies in a positive way. And we need our environment to be clean, to be safe, and to be secure to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, candidates. Yeah, round of applause for those platforms. I know it's not easy to pack in these big ideas into 2 minutes. We really appreciate it. You will also have 2 minutes to answer the upcoming questions. And these questions, as mentioned before, have come from not only our partners, but residents through a submission form that we had open for the last 6 weeks. And so 2 candidates per question will be answering, and there is 1 candidate not in attendance. So for 2 questions, there will only be 1 candidate answering a question. And just so y'all know, we did use a randomizer to select who answered these questions. It is actually random, except for the school board candidates are only answering questions related to schools and kids. So first up, we are going to have Damian Lee, a representative from the Youth Environmental Council, ask his question. And we have Bamadelli, our new Regional Climate Collaborative Program Manager at Green Umbrella. He'll be our mic person. And so, sorry, this will go to both Eve and Kendra. And you're good to go, Damian.
Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, my name is Damian Lee. I'm a member of the Youth Environmental Council and also a youth intern at Groundwork, Ohio River Valley. This question is for the school board. My question is, what will you do to support and provide increased education for youth related to climate change and environmental justice, as well as outdoor education and field experiences?
Well, as finance chair, the most important thing, frankly, is to make sure that the funding is there in order to pursue it from a curricular standpoint, but also as we begin to build further our career pathways, we lead, I think, the state as it pertains to agricultural pathways. So I think you have to fund the career ed piece of it. You have to fund the curricular piece of it regarding the environmental justice. But also what we have to do is, how shall I say it, create environments in which we have a culture of conservancy, a culture of caretaking, and that the community within each school has a sense of that. A good example, if we're talking about College Hill, would be Aiken High School, where indeed we have about 1,300 students. More than 300 of them are people that are not necessarily born here, but many are refugees from many, many different countries, many different languages spoken. But in that culture, not only of the ag pathways, but the culture of conservancy, we have almost 70 acres of woodland in Aiken, and those kids are taking care of many of those acres. So you create a culture of conservancy, you create a culture of commitment to one another, and then we provide the money in the curricular piece and also in the career pathway piece, but we also give our leaders within each building, both student and adult, and our partners like Groundworks, the opportunity to do what they need to do and not hold them back. This is very important. And very frankly, the administration and the last administrations and the current are not necessarily that interested in what we've been doing. And we had to convince them of the value. And I would suggest in our new forecast for our strategic plan, we've built in the fact that we want to be known as a district of sustainability.
Next up, Kendra.
So Eve spoke about value, and this is truly a value for me. Again, just from my work as a counselor, I recognize how important and how imperative it is that we help provide that educational piece. And so thinking about how we can continue to perpetuate curriculum, how we can make sure that there is funding available and that there is equitable resources and access to all of our schools. I know that we have several schools that have currently within it green schoolyards. And so that is such a positive thing, but it could be even greater if all of our schools had access to that. So as a potential board member, that is something that I would want to make sure that I'm working with my colleagues to ensure, because again, it allows for the opportunity for mindfulness and to be present and to slow down and to regulate your breathing, to engage in mindfulness eating, to engage in mindfulness walking, right? To really learn how to be present. And so those are some of the things that I will want to make sure that I am championing with my colleagues. And also, I think another thing that is important is to honor engagement. That is something that I would do to ensure that we continue to have sustainable resources and educational opportunities for outdoor experiences in place.
Great. So this next question comes from our residents who submitted in a form. This comes from Tom in Walnut Hills, and this question will be for just Mark Jeffries. Sorry, the other candidate who was tagged for that question is not here, so it's just you.
Okay.
So the question is, do you have any plans or ideas to leverage federal, philanthropic, or other funds to help formally establish a green bank, such as the one in Cleveland, or other clean energy efficiency financing programs in Cincinnati?
Yeah, so I wouldn't give it to my colleague because I'm just here myself apparently on this one. It's actually interesting that this conversation comes up because actually last week I was talking to some folks who there are active conversations right now, and I don't want to share too much because it's not my place to share, but with the port and with a number of other organizations to establish a green bank, leveraging federal dollars. So if you take a step back, we are at a really pivotable time in terms of federal investment, right? We have the Inflation Reduction Act. Of course, we have the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, but relative to this, relevant for this audience, the Inflation Reduction Act has a huge number of opportunities to fund municipal sustainable projects. Most notably, and a lot of these could be through a green bank or could be larger than that. For example, we can get up to 70% cash rebate for sustainable investment rebate. So if you think about, as an example, we invest $10 million in a solar, investment, we could get up to 7 million cash back. That is unprecedented, not some credit or something like that. So that is a massive opportunity for us. And I don't think we've fully dimensionalized what that opportunity is locally. And so we've been working, myself and Councilwoman Owens and on council, on how can we make sure as a city we're taking advantage of a lot of these federal opportunities, including that would funnel through a green bank. So I do think in order to fully take advantage of those, we have to have the infrastructure in place, not only with the city in terms of the personnel, but also a green bank to funnel that money appropriately to green projects.
Great, thank you. So this next question will be asked by Chris Patek from AIA Cincinnati. And the question will be for Jan Michelle and Reggie.
All right.
Hello, Chair. Thank you all for being here. Chris Patek with AIA Cincinnati, representing architects in our communities, and very interested in maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of our built environment. So the question is, how will you incentivize new building and renovation projects to implement net zero strategies, on-site energy production, and energy efficient buildings? And then second, how will you ensure that these efforts are equitable?
So, you guys probably know this, but Cincinnati Council just back in January started this 3-tier tax abatement program so starting with equitability, I mean, we're talking about taking 3 different sets of neighborhoods, the lift neighborhoods, which really have not been invested in, the middle tier neighborhoods, which are called expand neighborhoods, I often forget the titles, and the top tier neighborhoods like the Hyde Parks and the Oakley neighborhoods, which are the sustained neighborhoods. And so the neighborhoods that have not been invested in get more incentives. They get more of a tax abatement, a longer period of tax abatement, and that's to give bigger incentives to actually invest in those neighborhoods. So in addition to that 3-tier tax abatement structure, we looked at what additional incentives could we give for sustainability? What can we do to help the environment? So one thing is there is an additional tax abatement for renovation versus building new, because building new is not great for the tearing down and starting all over, creates more pollution. And so we're incentivizing renovation of existing structures. We're also, this didn't really get in yet, but the Office of Environmental Sustainability said, what if we gave incentives for having no natural gas lines in new construction? Now that hasn't happened yet, but that's something that the Office of Environmental Sustainability is pushing for. And so there are a lot of different parts to that. So those are things we can do. We can incentivize. We do have a tax abatement structure that does incentivize, as well as, all the federal perks you get. Like if you do a building that's all electric and doesn't have natural gas, you do get some great federal perks for that as well.
Great.
Okay, I don't
Next
know
is
if I like
Reggie.
sitting right in front of you. So, okay, and let me pass it on to Reggie to hear more.
Yeah, so the Vice Mayor we really got to the heart of it, where cities have the most influence is in incentives, right? And so she beautifully outlined what we did for residential tax abatements. Now, our next step is what the reforms we're going to do to our commercial tax abatements. And our commercial tax abatements, I mean, one of the things that we already have is a foundational document of our Green Cincinnati plan. And so we have to make sure as we reform our commercial tax abatements that we are aligning those reforms with the promises we have made in the Green Cincinnati plan. So that's like filter one. But the second step in this, and to be very honest, is about capacity building. We have a real focus on our council for empowering small businesses, small developers, Black developers. And we know that the more green the technology, the more that the renovation can be expensive. And so we are investing a lot in capacity building so that our goal to be sustainable is not unintentionally causing exclusion from folks to be able to participate in the process. And so what that capacity building looks like is partnering with larger developers to be able to get in on projects that are really profitable so that those developers are then able to go to the next step. And then in doing so, now you're getting folks to the space where they can say, yeah, I have the capital and I have the experience. I'm going to go for that net zero project now. Because right now, there are a lot of small developers that won't do that because they don't have the expertise or the dollars to do that. So we really see it as a pipeline of creating capacity with smaller developers and then embedding those incentives in our commercial structure, which is then primarily informed by Green Cincinnati plan.
Great, thank you. So our next question will be asked by Maddie Chera, who is the director of the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council, an initiative of Green Umbrella.
Hi, everyone. So access to nutritious food that people actually want to eat and that they can eat continues to be inadequate in meeting Cincinnati's needs. And that's in part due to lack of transportation and lack of other infrastructure, disinvestment in certain neighborhoods and their food businesses, and jobs that don't pay wages that meet rising living costs. So what I want to know is, how will you prioritize support of community-driven projects to increase equitable food access throughout the city?
And I did forget to say, this will be for Seth Walsh and Anna Albee.
I can repeat it.
Well, thank you for that question. As I kind of said in my opening, fresh food is such a big thing. It really permeates so many things, especially when you think about community safety, making sure kids are getting the nutrition they need. Oftentimes, if you put a map of where there's high gun violence, those are also food deserts. I live in a community in Madisonville that's a food desert. This is something that comes up, and our residents, frankly, keep begging for fresh food options. So I think, big picture, making sure the city continues partnering with the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council, working through there. But then also, what can we do to foster neighborhood buying clubs, right? Getting that food straight to the neighborhoods. How do we support organizations like Brick Gardens that's having, neighborhood gardening and making sure we're having urban gardens and whatnot. And then thinking creatively, I was at the Thrive Festival hosted by Hamilton County Parks this weekend, to anyone else who went. And they had there one of the plant gardens where you kind of, it's a white thing, it's a tower, you plant stuff. And they have kids who are working on that at the rec center, and they can plant their food and then take it home and have a fresh meal at home. So the more we can both do the top down investments and looking at those real grassroots options, I think the better. And it's really a really important thing. So thank you for that.
You're just trying to take my time. Let's see how it is.
Doesn't start till you talk.
Oh, even better. Need a little green, yellow, and red light up here. So if I start telling the story that nameless neighborhood A had a Kroger building at their infamous corners, and at some point it closed down over the last 20 years, and now the neighborhood's become a food desert. Everybody in this room is thinking of a different neighborhood because it's happened almost everywhere. And it's happened because Kroger's became unsustainable in our neighborhood model as they were. Where we have failed as a community is to then get innovative and creative in how we start to address this. All our solutions become, let's bring a grocery back. And there's a reason that didn't work 20 years ago. When I was in College Hill, we really wrestled with this question because it's a food desert. And at the time before issue 7 passed, you'd have to go up to North College Hill, so you'd have to go through multiple exchanges. It just became too much of a burden. There is a pathway to do it. And it's ways it's worked over centuries, which is to recognize some people do things really well. Some people are bakers and make bread. Some people are growing the apples and come in and sell it. And we have all these storefronts that were built for the 1900 era that have 2,000 square feet that don't need 2,000 square feet anymore. What we as a city need to start thinking about, and where I'm trying to lead the effort on right now, is how do we help small businesses adjust to the built environment in this post-Amazonian world where what it was doesn't need to be anymore. And so what I'm saying here is we don't need to be coming up with groceries for every single neighborhood. We need to find ways to incentivize and support these small businesses, not just opening, but long-term, working through the real issues to ensure that they can open their doors, they can stay open, and they can provide these fresh fruits and vegetables and food to their neighborhoods. And then they can partner with people that provide the meat, that provide whatever the next layer is. We have so many vacant storefronts around the city of Cincinnati. These opportunities are very real. And if we just look at it from piece by piece by piece, it doesn't just have to be Findlay Market that this can succeed in. But we, again, as a city, have to start thinking, so much of our incentives are on the front end. Let's get you open. It's how do we keep you open long term? And as we look around the city, we see so many small businesses closing because we haven't asked that question. What does it actually take to help you stay open as a small business in some of these neighborhoods as they're coming back to life? That's what I get really excited about, how we start tackling. 2 minutes on the nose, boom.
Great. So this next question will be for Liz Keating and Mika Owens. Greater Cincinnati is participating in the US EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Program and is about to launch a process to create a regional climate action plan. We will be announcing this publicly at our annual meeting on October 18th, so another reason to come. The question is, what ideas do you want to see in a regional plan, and what steps would you take to connect with neighboring jurisdictions and other levels of government, like the county, for example?
Thank you. Since I have the mic, I'll start.
Oh, yes, great.
If that's okay. So we are in an environment of increased collaboration. And so this opportunity is huge. And because we are a city that has a climate action plan, one of the few cities in this region, we have the ability to lead. And so I think the Green Cincinnati plan and the lofty goals of that, that's it. Let's start there. How can we be supportive of other jurisdictions to get there? And so, this is really a win-win. Together, everyone achieves more. And so I think as elected officials, our role is to start fostering these collaborations and these conversations in order to understand where our resources lie, leveraging federal dollars to do that, right? When we're looking at issue 7 around the county, when we're looking at the federal dollars to connect regions and cities, like all of us being intent on the same goal. And so looking at the Regional Climate Collaborative, that work moving forward, partnering with our sustainability partners like Green Umbrella, we can do this work together. And so, when I think about the goals of the Green Cincinnati plan being 50% carbon reduction by 2030, 2050 carbon neutral, we can do that. And let's use climate as climate view to be able to understand where we're making progress. So this is certainly a time of leveraging partnerships, collaboration, and technology to know that we're making progress.
Pass it all the way down. So I agree with Councilmember Owens that the city and the county really have built a much stronger relationship over the past couple of years and continue to do so. I think the number one most obvious opportunity for this in partnering with the county and surrounding jurisdictions is with MSD and stormwater management. As we continue to see climate change and extreme storms, I believe it's 10 100-year storms in the last 11 years. We are constantly seeing the flooding, the sewer backups. The city has spent $138 million just on the Band-Aid fix of the sewer backup prevention devices. That doesn't help us because the house next door then gets the sewer backup the next extreme rain. So working together to maximize those dollars together to build that green infrastructure, to create new pilot innovations, to be able to offset the water, because we know it's coming. we have an aging infrastructure. We cannot spend millions and millions and millions for miles and miles of pipeline. It doesn't work anymore. So maximizing that partnership. The other piece is that innovation piece, the work that we've done with this hackathon, because what we've seen the past 2 years is we've had other jurisdictions come. We've had startups in other cities come because they have the same problems, and they're coming to compete with the problem statement that the city of Cincinnati put together, because they can help solve and innovate and then work with our tech startup community to be able to create new innovations and new technologies to solve those problems together, like recycling, like the litter issue. Looking forward, how do we handle these storm events, and how do we handle snow events? How do we measure which roads are going to freeze fastest so we know they're going to get potholes and treat those faster so that we don't end up with potholes and have to go chase those and spend all the money and time and fuel and cost in exhaust fumes to fill those? How do we innovate in that way, partnering with those surrounding jurisdictions because they have the same problems we do? If we pull those resources together and innovate together, I think we're going to have much bigger and better ideas going forward. Ooh, look at that.
Right on time. So our next question comes from Mitch Deck at Housing Opportunities Made Equal. And this question will be for Jeff Kramerding and Eve Bolton.
Thank you, guys. So the 2023 Green Cincinnati Plan outlined the city's most pressing climate risks. Chief among those are rising temperatures and the associated health risks. As we talked about a bit earlier, low-income neighborhoods typically act as heat islands. And due to the concentration of older housing stock in the city of Cincinnati, and particularly in these communities, many residents live in buildings that lack air conditioning altogether. This summer, housing organizations like Home saw a massive spike in complaints about broken AC units and unbearable heat. If elected, what steps will you take to help the residents of these neighborhoods survive the rising temperatures we're already feeling?
Great, thank you. I appreciate the question. It is a huge issue, and when we talk about climate, which is an existential threat, but continuing to bring it home, how it affects local people in these examples is critical to making people understand climate change. And we as local officials have to be reacting to the local concerns, like the bridge that washes out during the 100-year storms. So it is critical. The solution is multifaceted. I mean, we talked about planting trees and creating greener neighborhoods, which is critically important and something that we can do as a neighborhood. And then we need more resources for housing to modernize. As I said, the cleanest building, the greenest building is one that's already there. So we can retrofit buildings so that they are green, climate friendly, and cooler, so people can reside in a safe, healthy environment. I'm very bullish on what we can do along the Mill Creek corridor, which is an area that you mentioned. There's just tremendous opportunity. The Mill Creek is obviously much cleaner. It's got the potential to be Cincinnati's green corridor. And when we talk about new housing, which is a common thing that you're hearing, because there's been so much demolition in those neighborhoods along the Mill Creek, like Cumminsville, like Millville, there's the opportunity for new housing, greener housing, and really rebuilding those neighborhoods and creating 21st century green communities. So I'm very excited about the opportunities along the Mill Creek corridor. We just need to identify the resources to make that happen.
Sorry, we only have one hand held.
That's okay. Thank you for the question. Some things come to mind. We have 65 schools, and in those 65 schools, and they're not all in the city. We are bigger than the city. But our concept of over 25 years now is a school is a community learning center. And that is critical because we're offering not only the newly built buildings and renovated buildings as a result of the facilities master plan, and they are safe and they are healthy buildings, but more particularly the concept that the community can use our buildings. And more particularly, especially with the leadership of Green Umbrella and a few others, we're thinking more heartily about our campuses and the mutual use of our campuses in order to give the opportunity for community folks to be able to use not only the schools, but to have green space, to have healthy and safe space for recreation within their neighborhood. The other piece of it is, I would suggest the Community Learning Center Institute, which is a hallmark of our district. They've been using a community learning center concept to go beyond the school, beyond the campus, and into the community. And in places like Lower Price Hill, and also in Sailor Park to begin to concentrate on housing, and not only trying to make some housing safer, but one of the big problems we have in Cincinnati is mobility of our students. Our kids never are necessarily in the same place for the whole school year. The other piece of that housing issue is that we have as well 26 school-based health centers within our district. That's more than the whole state combined. And those health centers are accessible by the community to use, but more particularly, we can use that opportunity that some of the bad things that are produced because of the old housing stock, like asthma and some of the other kind of pollutant issues, our kids can get the relief at school. Again, thank you for the $1.2 billion for the facilities master plan.
Great, thank you so much. This next question comes from Anne in East Price Hill. And this question will be for Anna Albee and Kendra Mapp. Question is, how can the city and school board work together to ensure that every child attending Cincinnati Public Schools has safe drinking water that does not have high levels of lead?
Thank you for that question. I think it's important to ensure that we have opportunity for coalition building. And one of the things that I really appreciate that CPS, current board, as well as city council have in place is the opportunity to have quarterly meetings. And that is a time where both entities are able to come together to discuss those pressing issues and those pressing concerns, because we recognize within our community, we don't deal with these issues in silo or in isolation. And if we really want to see change, we have to work collaboratively to impact that change. And so I think that is one way that I would want to continue to elevate to ensure that city council as well as CPS board members are working collaboratively on the most pressing issues that face our students and our district and our community overall.
All the way down.
Thank you for that question. I'm always excited when there are specific issues where CPS and the city can work together. I think that's an important partnership. Again, if we think about the future of the city, whatever we can do, city government to support our schools is so vital. On that question specifically, I think lead pipes, they're an issue. They're an issue we need to fix. And they're also, that is one piece of our infrastructure that needs to be updated. So I know maybe this is not where you all were thinking I was going, but Cincinnati is an opportunity to sell our railroad and then take that money, the interest on the sales on that, and be able to invest it into deferred maintenance costs, improving our existing infrastructure. Pipes, making sure we can get our kids clean water has to be a priority there, making sure we get all of our residents clean water. But then again, when we've got those funds that we're investing into infrastructure improvements, how do we prioritize those projects, making sure we're looking closely at equitable distribution of those funds. I believe the city manager this week released a list of projects to prioritize, making sure we're going and being in neighborhoods that are, have been hit hardest over the generations by disinvestment and other things. So, I am excited about the possibilities that, if the railroad sale goes through and we are able to then take those funds and invest into rejuvenating our infrastructure, what that can mean for, to steal Mark's line, a safer, greener Cincinnati going forward. So thank you. Cleaner, safer, greener, cleaner. I'm so sorry.
Well, it's funny you brought that up, Anna. Our next question is actually quite relevant to that topic. This is a question that will be for Jan Michelle and Seth, and it will be asked by Margot Roberts, who is a resident of Bond Hill and was a climate advisory group leader for our Climate Safe Neighborhoods group that met for Bond Hill and Roselawn. And I do want to give a quick shout out. We also have two recent Avondale Climate Advisory Group members in the house. You guys want to raise your hands? Woo! Diana and Jewel. So Margot, we'll get you a mic and you can ask your question.
Sorry, Anna, you would have been good for this one. You would have, you would have already had hands into it. Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here. Excited to be here. Excited to hear your responses. My question is, what is your position on the Cincinnati Southern Railway sale? If voters approve, how will you ensure that the 1.6 billion from the sale will prioritize climate resilience and environmental justice investments?
Oh, I love that question. I've been looking at Howard. We've been debating silently back and forth. I'm totally for the sale of this asset and taking that $1.6 billion, investing it, not touching that principal, but getting interest on it every year, which will at least, if not more, double the amount that we get for our existing infrastructure and continue to build that principal. Part of that, part of the return on investment will go back into the principal. Probably a third will go back into the principal, and the rest will come to us on city council. We have about $500 million in deferred maintenance, and we can do better in our neighborhoods. We can fix these sidewalks and streets and, you know, these crumbling buildings, these rec centers that have chemicals in them that our kids are breathing, that our seniors are breathing, you know, from the horrible HVAC systems, the West Fork incinerator that is probably poisoning people in Cumminsville because there's asbestos in it, and it's been sitting there since the 1970s. There is so much we can do, and we can get the lead out of the pipes. You heard Anna talk about how we have this 30-year plan with our Greater Cincinnati Waterworks has a 30-year plan to get the lead out of the pipes. But our director, Kathy Bailey, said if we get this infrastructure money, we can speed that up. Because, you know, once our kids get lead poisoning, there's no cure for that. We've got work to do. So how do we prioritize? Hopefully everybody saw Cheryl Long's our city manager's recommendations yesterday. And it's really up to us on city council to say these things have to be priority. And so we're all on board, you know, everybody is on board about bringing equity and looking at our underserved neighborhoods that have been left behind. We're working on, all of us are working together on an ordinance now. You know, we can't all talk together because that would be against the sunshine rules, but people are working in pods on that. And so we're going to come up with a plan that's really going to make sure that those funds are equitably dispersed across all of our neighborhoods that have needs. So we set those priorities, and you know that the Green Cincinnati plan has priorities in them that we all support. Mika Owen, is my time up? Oh my God. Okay, I'm just going to say, Mika doesn't get to talk this round, but she has a motion that prioritizes the green plan, which I supported. So we are there, we're on board, we are moving forward. So thank you, Green Umbrella.
On the first part of the question, yes, absolutely, I'm in favor of selling the rail. I'm not going to look at you, Howard. But the way I look at it, it's an opportunity. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to really, I'm going to use the term that I'm told is what it means to glow up our rail. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I just came up with it. So right now we make $25 million a year off it. We can be making $50+ million a year off it. What does that mean? When we start dealing with the infrastructure and we think about the city of Cincinnati, it's an amazing city. And one of the best parts about the city is our historic infrastructure, our historic buildings, our historic housing stock. History is everywhere. You turn around, there's something cool that happened here in Cincinnati. Those are built to last 100 years. And that 100 years is coming due. And the bill that we have right now, $500 million, is only going to get worse if we don't have the money to attack it and actually start to solve it, which is why I'm totally in favor of this. We are transforming an asset into something even greater for the city to really attack it. Now, to the greater question, how do we ensure that we can have the environmental and sustainability components to this? When you are on a tight budget, those are the first things that get cut. When you have revenue opportunities to actually be able to invest appropriately in how you fix the infrastructure, not just so you get through tomorrow because you have Columbia Parkway caving in and we got to get the commuters into the city, but you actually have the opportunity to invest in our infrastructure to make sure it's done right for the next 100 years, then we can really be making the right decisions. We're not making the shortcuts anymore. And that is why this deal is so important. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to take Cincinnati from this city that is amazing to a city that is really world-class and showing the rest of the world how it can be done right.
Great, thank you. So this next question is kind of an amalgamation from several questions submitted by residents from across the city, and it will just be for Liz. So the question is, in addition to heat-related illness, Cincinnati will experience an array of other health issues exacerbated by climate change. Increased precipitation can lead to more high flooding days, which can harm water quality and create breeding grounds for mosquitoes and other disease vectors. Increased risk of high winds, landslides, and other disasters can threaten lives directly. We also know that health impacts are not experienced the same by all members of our community. So what actions do you propose to address forthcoming increased health impacts from climate change in Cincinnati?
Well, I'm glad you asked because these are actually some conversations that we've been having for future hackathons. Would we talk about innovation in government and under the umbrella of sustainability? And one of the things that we are looking at that Councilmember Harris referred to earlier is Children's Hospital says that one of the -- reasons why kids miss school in our CPS school system is because of asthma. And being able to take data to show which areas have kids with the highest level of asthma related absenteeism, taking data for how often they're coming into the doctor for just different respiratory illnesses, take that on top of the data of where our blighted buildings are, where we have the brownfields, where we don't have enough of our urban forestry, where we have our heat islands, and then on top of that, take the data of where is our highest level of evictions, which census tract has the highest level of youth gun violence, and be able to stack all that data on top of each other and start to innovate. And that's where we can work with our startup ecosystem, with our corporate community to be able to find those underlying challenges and where we align ourselves in the same purpose and the same mission, where we can come together on that problem statement to innovate there and use that data to be able to drive the innovation around sustainability, whether that does mean expanding our urban forestry, whether that does mean bringing blighted buildings back to life, whether that does mean the remediation of brownfields, to be able to combat those health issues, to invest in our different neighborhoods and to drive more sustainability, to be able to take better care of our kids and better futures for their health, which then will lead to going to school more often, not missing school as often, having more stable housing, having a healthier environment to live in, which puts them on a path and a better trajectory for their future going forward. So those are things that we're constantly talking about around the data, around the innovation, and partnering with the startup ecosystem and our corporate community to be able to solve those issues.
Great, thank you. So our next question comes from Dave Schmidt from the Mill Creek Alliance, and this will be for Mark and Mika.
Thanks. Sorry, I got to get the old man glasses on here. All right. Complicated question because it's a complicated issue. Average rainfall in Cincinnati has increased by more than 1% per year for the last 20+ years. We've had over 5,000 flood damage structure claims received per year. And this is not a static number, it's growing. Our infrastructure is not keeping pace. The Cincinnati region has no coordinated response to stormwater challenges, in part because responsibility for stormwater is fractured and divided between many city and county agencies, including MSD, Stormwater Management Unit, the county engineer, and others. What will you do to work towards a consolidation of stormwater responsibility and coordinate with city and county and regional entities to address this issue?
Wow, what a timely question, because I think we had a conversation specific to this not long ago. And I think we're at a moment where we need to level set. And that means let's bring the county, let's bring the city together, the people that need to be in the room to talk through these issues. I know the county is on board with that. And so we just got to take the next steps. And so having conversations with Sierra Club, KUFA, these are the folks that need to be in the room. And so we know we have a problem. And often it's not only recognizing it, but what do we need to do next? And so I'm looking forward to having those conversations along with my vice chair. I think it's also rooted in the opportunity to say, okay, we have the Green Cincinnati plan. The county has their waste management plan. Let's all get on the same page and let's understand what goals that we are aligned on. And really that is it. What is the data telling us? What is on paper? And so I think this is a moment where we can truly expand and truly make sure that we are showing progress together because we have a roadmap. So I think that's the first step.
So yeah, so Councilwoman Owens and I have set up a regular connect with some of the folks at Sierra Club because of this issue. And so what I would say is there's the people part of it, there's the organizational structure part of it, and then there's the needs, like the capital needs. The people part of it, to this whoever made the point earlier, I think our relationship with the county is a lot better now than historically, and I think that is an important thing because people need to help get things done. And if people are, if there's animosity or challenges, then it's hard to get things done. So I think it starts with that we have a good relationship with folks at the county level, but then we also have to think more regionally. Organizationally, I think we have to solve that because we have so many siloed pieces. Who's on first and who's really, and I think we just need to have a plan on like organizationally, is that the right structure or is there a different structure? And then based on that, what are the capital needs that we have? I'm the city's rep on OKI, which does a lot of transportation dollars, but a lot of federal dollars. So I think that's an opportunity once we've identified that, once we have the right people in the room, once we figure out what's the right organizational structure to solve this problem, and then what are the needs, then we go to the federal level and say, okay, here are the needs, here's what we need to invest in order to address those challenges. So I'm excited because I think we have a roadmap for addressing that, and that was the frustration of a lot of folks before this, is like, okay, these are issues and they just remain issues and we're not going anywhere. I think we've got a clear path forward to map out, okay, how are we tackling it? These are not easy issues because they involve organizational structures and cross, governmental agencies, but that doesn't mean that we're gonna shy away from tackling it.
Great.
You mind me just adding something to that? That is such a great question. Okay, you don't have to time. I'm just going to say this really fast, but I think this is a great question. And I'm so glad that our chair and vice chair of our climate committee are working together on this with the city and county together, because what happens when these problems occur is that everybody's pointing the finger. The sewer district will point, it's stormwater, that's the city. City will go, no, it's the sewer. And, the person in the middle is a property owner who's going back and forth. And meanwhile, the landslide is happening, the trees are falling over, it's crazy. And so the fact that we're going to pull these sides together and come up with a better plan is wonderful. It's a big relief. It's going to be great for our citizens.
All right.
Just had to say that.
Yay, stormwater management. So our last question will come from Wade Johnston, the director of Tri-State Trails. And the question will be for Jeff Kramerding and Reggie Harris.
All right, we'll see. So over the last decade, the city has invested millions of dollars into trail infrastructure projects like Wasson Way, Ohio River Trail on the east side, among others. Today, the city is setting plans in motion to calm traffic on wide thoroughfares with egregious speeding and crashes like Lynn Street, North Bend Road, Western Northern Boulevard, and adding bike facilities. Connectivity between bikeway projects is often a missing link that creates a barrier for more individuals to ride their bikes for transportation. Within the foreseeable future, much of the low-hanging fruit for connectivity will be complete, and the hard connections will come with a trade-off of parking and travel lanes. Are you willing to make some tough decisions on this issue? And if so, what are your ideas?
That's a terrible question. So yes, we make tough decisions every day. Every question you have asked is a tough decision. Nothing in municipal government is like easy, a no-brainer. But here's the thing: when you ask about tough decisions, particularly at this level and with our budget challenges, we're talking about pedestrian safety. We're talking about infrastructure in which you can't park a fire truck in a firehouse because the truck will fall through the floor. And so I want to go back to issue 22 and the sailing of our railroad, because we often approach these things as an either or dynamic. Either you do this or you do that. And the reality is we have to do all of those things, right? And so when you talk about the reason why we've been missing out on those connectivity pieces is because we have been spending the money that we would spend on those issues, we have been pouring into Band-Aids on the incinerators, Band-Aids on the lead pipes, Band-Aids on the stormwater management, right? And so the reason why I'm sort of in a loving spirit, because Wade's my guy, rejecting the premise of making those tough decisions is because it's that would then say that either we have pedestrians being killed or biking, or we have infrastructure crumbling around our citizens. And that's just a no-go. We have to do both. And so in laying out a path forward and doing both, this is what's really critical about that railway. Now, to your point, where we have shown that we're moving in that direction is the strategic use of issue $7, right? Those infrastructure dollars are around transportation. And so as we do this reform on connected communities, what we're also saying is, how do we add in zoning reforms and how do we use city dollars that we are already having the infrastructure be ready? I'm gonna take a page from the vice mayor. How do we have the infrastructure already be ready to not always have to think about adding those connections afterwards, but planning? That's what Complete Streets is about. So the groundwork is there so that we're not having these, additional add-ons, but we're thinking about embedding it inside of the structure of development. So the answer is we must do both, because an either or means lives lost.
The answer is yes, and I often gravitate back to my experience. My road to city council began in my neighborhood, Price Hill. When we talk about challenging connections, Price Hill is often challenging because it's on a hill, and it's been harder to connect. But we are investing, and I think that we've got a grant application in OKI, and I hope at some point shortly we'll have some very good news about connecting the existing Dunham Trail to the Lick Run Trail in South Fairmount. That's a very short gap, but it's a very challenging and expensive gap. So I think that that's an exciting possibility. And we are committed to this. It is about a green city, and it's also about attracting and retaining talent. When it comes to this interconnectivity, it's critical. It's what talent, it's what young people are looking for in the city. So we have to do it. This council is steadfast, and we are going to do it.
All right. So that's it from our candidates. Can we get a round of applause? Well, I just want to say thank you so much to all of our candidates for coming, and to all of you for asking the hard-hitting questions, showing up tonight. I just have a few quick announcements, and then please enjoy the rest of the snacks, mix, mingle. I don't know if candidates or any of their managers will be staying around, but feel free to ask them more questions, or you guys can exit. But I just want to highlight again that Green Umbrella's annual meeting, where we'll be making some pretty big announcements and where you can meet some of our new staff, will be happening in this room on October 18th. So please go to our website and register. We'd love to have you and highlight the great work of our members. I also want to share that in partnership with CO2 Analysis, Green Umbrella has recently completed a big climate health report that characterizes the projections of the climate health impacts we can expect here in Greater Cincinnati. So on November 1st, we will be hosting a webinar to share the findings of that report and talk about some climate health next steps. Can I get Leah and Mitch to raise their hand back there? Those are our two climate health fellows at Green Umbrella. They're working away on this and turning it into communication materials. So please ask them any questions about climate health. And last but not least, November 7th, please vote.